Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Well, happy Monday night, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. And here we are. So much betting of football lately, Huss, that we finally get to some hockey. Regular season officially underway. All the future bets are still available. If those guys have not played yet, you can find those over at Coolbet. Of course, Coolbet, the presenting sponsor of the Lock Shop. Sign up for an account today. Enter the code LOCKSHOP when you do roll in there. And boy, I love diving through NHL futures bets, buddy. I just do.
You want to, dude, you could just get lost in the Coolbet NHL section right now. I mean, there's already games on the board for Tuesday and Wednesday, I believe. When do the Oilers open?
Wednesday. Yeah, I think they're like a minus 182 favorite against the Canucks.
We've got to wait all the way until Friday for the Jets to get going, but that will give fans of the Jets maybe a little few extra days to plop down on some of the Jets totals or options right there. But yeah, I just got lost in there. And, you know, I was kind of comparing this show. I was looking back to what we did for the football show. And I had mentioned that, you know, if you just blindly took a whole bunch of unders, you would probably do quite well. And if you recall, the two guys I had unders on passing, Mac Jones and Dak Prescott. We can basically cash both of those right now with the amount of time that those guys have left. And it's important to know that, you know, these overs are really based on if a guy can stay healthy and play all the games. And just the possibility of injury makes the under probably a better bet on most of these numbers because of how sharp these odds makers are in setting them. All that being said, I went through, picked a couple unders, and then just went on some more overs because it's way more fun to kind of identify guys you think are going to have big seasons. So we've got some of those, but you can
I've
still
got 5 overs. Of my 6 picks, I've got 5 overs.
Yeah. I went 2, and then I'm like, I'm just going to come out here and I might indiscriminately sprinkle a couple on some unders and just kind of see what happens. But for the sake of the Lock Shop and making some fun picks that we can follow and cheer for all season long, we got to have a few overs in there as well. But yeah, grab the half dozen, sort of focused in on obviously the Winnipeg Jets and a little bit of the Edmonton Oilers, because I think we spend quite a bit of time on that. But I may as well start off with the one guy that we're both huge fans of. But at what point does Alex Ovechkin not just score 50 goals in his sleep? And listen, I'm not saying that this is Ovi taking a step back or anything like that. I mean, he's still absolutely legendary, but I really do think that Nick Backstrom's status is going to have a big, big effect on Ovechkin. And at some point at this age, he's going to regress a little bit. So 45.5. The guy's as durable as anyone in the National Hockey League. It really is incredible how he plays night after night. I'm just thinking that it's not like if he scores 45 goals, it's still an amazing season. If he gets to 40 at this age, it's like all time. We're just so used to Ovi smashing all those numbers. I think that this year, that's a little bit too high of a number. I mean, if you told me it was 39.5 and he needs to get to 40, I might be able to get in on it. But he's just set such an impossibly high bar year after year after year that whether he gets hurt, whether the impact of Backstrom being out affects it, whether the fact that I don't think the Capitals are going to be as good as they have been before. So I'm taking the under on Alex Ovechkin's goal total for the year. And the other under is a goal total, and it's former Jets captain Blake Wheeler. Now, people outside the market might not have been paying attention to this. There's been a lot of talk about Wheeler's role with the Winnipeg Jets this season. He's sort of been the face of the franchise. The power play has run through him for the last number of years, and he has been on the top line and at the top of the ice time leaders for the Winnipeg Jets for a number of years. That's all changing right now. He was stripped of the captaincy. He's not part of the quote-unquote leadership group right now, and by all accounts, he's handled it very, very well. And he's going to be playing alongside Pierre-Luc Dubois and Cole Perfetti on what is the Jets' second line. Listen, even in Wheeler's greatest heights of his career, and I mean, he had back-to-back 91-point seasons, and he had 7 straight 20-goal seasons. So this is something that he's consistently done over the course of his career. But if you look back 2 years ago, only played 50 games, scored 15. Last year, had 17 and 65 for 60. And again, this was still playing the elevated role that Paul Maurice had for him, and that's somewhat continued with Dave Lowry. Wheeler, just the fact that he's not going to be in that number one power play this year, I think is going to have a significant drop in just simple opportunity. And then playing with Dubois and with Perfetti, he still is a pass-first guy. I think he'll get his points, and I think he'll be there. I'm just not in on him scoring 20 this year in a lesser role. So my two unders, Ovechkin under 45.5 goals, and Wheeler under 19.5 goals, not getting 20 for the former captain.
I've got one under, and it's my guy. It's my guy, Jesse Puljujarvi, under 39.5 points. Now, part of this is an emotional hedge, because I will gladly sacrifice my money if he finishes over 40 points. But just to justify it from an under 39.5 points, to me, 40 points is best case scenario. Best case scenario for Jesse Puljujarvi this year. I mean, he's had one preseason game where he got to play with McDavid and Kane. He looked pretty good in that one, but we've known for a long time that the Oilers like Kyler Yamamoto up in that spot better. Well, then you go, okay, well, Jesse Puljujarvi can play on the second line. Well, Dylan Holloway's coming in camp and essentially taking over the second line left wing spot, which is bumped Hyman over to the right side, which bumps Jesse Puljujarvi down to the third line. And then on top of that, some people think that Fogle should be on the third line with McLeod and Nugent-Hopkins, even though Jesse Puljujarvi is 100% a better hockey player than Warren Fogle. So I think he probably ends up settling in on the third line for a good chunk of his games. And that third line, you know, it's a good third line, McLeod, Nugent, Puljujarvi, but Nuge is going to get the power play time. McLeod's going to get second unit power play time and penalty kill time. And Jesse Puljujarvi might get a little bit of second power play time, but that's it. So I don't see a path with the way that this roster is currently constructed to get Jesse Puljujarvi to 40 points. So it's an under. I think that's what's probably going to end up happening. If it doesn't, I'm okay sacrificing a few bucks to see him have a good season. But I honestly, deep down, I don't see him getting to 40 with the way they want to use him here, buddy.
Hey, just aside from this pick, what's the story with Puljujarvi? I mean, you know, anyone that pays attention to your market, I mean, it seems like every 3 weeks or so in the offseason, Puljujarvi was getting traded, then he wasn't. His name was still bantered around going into training camp, and then we're talking off air before, oh, he's out there with Kane and McDavid.
Yeah, Yamamoto is banged up, so they gave him a look there, and Puljujarvi, and I don't even like the anti-Puljujarvi crowd would probably have to admit this, he looked better with Kane and McDavid than Yamamoto did in the 3 preseason games he played with them. And he actually scored a goal, which Yamamoto didn't do in the games that he played with them. So I think he's a better fit. I think that line's better with him up there. The story's an interesting one because, you know, depending on who you talk to in the market, people say, oh, still shopping him heavily. And then they go, well, they want a second-round pick for him. Nobody's going to give it. One of the reasons nobody's going to give up anything for him is because they know how desperate the Oilers are. They have $165 in cap space. Why in the world would a team give anything to the Oilers to help them get out of this cap crunch, knowing damn well that they should probably have to give up an asset to get cap space nowadays? Like, that's just how it works. So it's been a very dicey up and down. I will say this, the players, Puljujarvi himself has had nothing but a positive attitude basically through the entire thing. So I think that's the most positive part about it. I just don't know where he fits in. So under 39.5 points. That's the only under I'm going to sniff today.
Yeah, it's the definition of the emotional hedge because he is your guy right now. And you're happy to be wrong.
If he has a tough season, I better make money off it. That's the way I view it. So
I'll say this. I don't think anyone has had a better pulse on Puljujarvi than you from day one. So I will certainly err to you when it comes to any Jesse Puljujarvi takes heading into the upcoming season. I hope he does well, though. He's an easy guy to cheer for. Very likable player.
Yeah, I hope he does well as well. All right, so you got 4 overs. I got 5 overs left. Let me bang on my 2 defensemen. I'll talk about the 2 defensemen, and then we can kind of look at these forwards. So I've got Adam Fox over 67.5 points, and Cale Makar, the disrespect of Cale Makar at 77.5 points. I mean, I think there's a better chance he gets closer to 100 than 70. So if that's the case, I'll gladly take over 77.5 points. I mean, you just see the way that the National Hockey League game is developing for defensemen like Adam Fox and defensemen like Cale Makar. They can skate. They move the puck extremely well. Adam Fox's number is 67.5. He finished with 74 points last year, and the year before that, 47 and 55 also is at a rate that puts you up over 67.5 points. And with both of these guys, as crazy as it sounds, they're still relatively young into their National Hockey League career. Like, we're talking 3, now 4 years in. Adam Fox won a Norris Trophy in his second year. So I think there's still, based on just what they were capable of last year, I like these numbers. But I still think both of these players improve this year, maybe overall as defensemen. But I think with that will come a solid number of points again. So I'm on Fox over 67.5, and I'm definitely on Cale Makar over 77.5 points.
I guess the 77.5 is just building in an assumed 5 or 6 games being out of the lineup for whatever reason. Because, I mean, he was way above a point-a-game player last year.
Yeah.
He's getting better every year after year right now.
He's a point per game in his career, which is insane to say.
Yeah. Exactly. So, I mean, I guess, the injury is your injury or something like that is your enemy when it comes to that Makar bet. But I don't know how he possibly doesn't finish at a point a game at the end of this season. And listen, if he plays in most of the games, he should be comfortably over in that. Those are interesting. I really didn't get into many of the defensemen. But moving on, and I guess we're going to get to, well, you know what? I'll do my other guys, and then we can get to these Oiler dudes because
sure,
I know
yeah,
we're going to have a
idea.
little conversation on McDavid. Jack Eichel, over 71.5 points. Now, this is a bet that Jack Eichel stays healthy. If he is healthy, he's going to be the clear number 1 center. Fingers crossed. I mean, Mark Stone, we love the guy here in Winnipeg, and he's, a top 5 winger in the league when healthy. But man, he had those back issues last year, and I'm somewhat, I'm optimistic, but not convinced that we'll get that Mark Stone for. Bottom line is everything is going to be going through Jack Eichel on this Golden Knights team. And I think last year was weird. I mean, he got traded. He had the surgery. He came back to a team that was decimated, and they disappointed. I think Vegas will be better, and I think Jack Eichel is going to show everyone why he got the contract that he's got and why the Vegas Golden Knights put out the price that they had to pay to get him there. So 71.5. I mean, I think Eichel ends up being in and around a point-a-game player. And again, this is a bet that Jack Eichel will be healthy because, I mean, obviously, if he misses 20 or 25 games, he's not hitting that. But I do like Jack Eichel over the 71.5. And I've got 2 overs for the Winnipeg Jets. Now, I just mentioned that Blake Wheeler, I'm thinking he's going under 20 or under 19.5 goals. Cole Perfetti with that 14.5 number is really interesting in that, you've got Dubois in the middle of that line. For all young players that are like sort of trying to make the team and get in a spot, he's in such a different position. I mean, they not only expect him to produce on that in the top 6, they need him to produce in the top 6 because once you get past those top, 6 players, there's not really another guy that's knocking on the door that has anything close to the tools that Perfetti does from an offensive standpoint. Now, he, like Wheeler, is often a little bit more of a pass-first player, but on this line, we've already seen him shooting more and in positions to score. He had a pair of goals the other day in a preseason game. I believe he had another one in the game that he scored before. So, and again, this isn't the fact, he's scoring in the preseason. It's just that he's going to be impactful in the power play. He's going to be playing a ton of minutes. And he's playing with a guy like Dubois, who is so good at bull rushing to the net. One of the things that Kyle Conor found out very early playing with Dubois last year is if you get into those dirty areas and follow Dubois into the blue paint, rebounds are going to be on your stick and they're going to end up in the back of the net. The one concern about Perfetti was, I mean, he missed the majority of last season after getting smoked by Jamie Alexiak of Seattle and did not return. He's a smaller guy. He's going to have to learn how to take the grind of the daily National Hockey League game. But put it this way, if he stays in the lineup and plays as much as we expect him to do for the Winnipeg Jets, anything under than 15 goals, I think will be a real disappointment. So I'm putting my money behind Cole Perfetti to get over 14.5. And then Mark Scheifele. And just
this
when we're
is an
done,
interesting one. That's a big number.
That is. But you know what? We talked about guys that are consistent, that are point of game players. And Mark Scheifele absolutely is that guy. I mean, last year in what was a real down year for Mark Scheifele, and again, he missed the final, 10 games or so with injury, and the team was out of it, so they didn't bring him back in. He was still 70 points in 67 games. The year before that was 63 and 56, was 73 in 71 the year before, and when last time he played a full 82-game schedule was 84. He's been a point-a-game player for the last 6 seasons in the National Hockey League. And for the most part, he's been quite durable. This is a huge year for Mark. He's got 2 years left on his contract. There'll be the potential of an extension or another deal in the next offseason. So this is absolutely crucial for him. And, we talked a little bit before about Blake Wheeler's new role playing on a different line. Mark Scheifele in his career will never have a better opportunity to get major points than playing with Kyle Conor and Nikolai Ehlers. This line through the preseason, and again, you take it for what it's worth depending on the competition they've been playing. They have been absolutely prolific. And I've got a combined prop for those guys we'll get to at the end of our official picks.
I saw that pop up there.
But as far as points, I'm not sure what his goals are this year, but Kyle Conor, you can mark him in for 40. Nikolai Ehlers, you should be able to mark him in for 30. Scheifele's going to score his as well. He'll be a big part of that number one power play along with those other guys. I think as long as he doesn't miss any extended period of time, Mark Scheifele over 76.5 is as close to a lock as you can have in the Winnipeg Jets group. So Perfetti over 14.5 goals and Scheifele over 76.5 points are on the card as well.
I got one other non-Oiler in here, and it's Jason Robertson, who just got his deal. His total is set at 33.5 goals. This guy had 41 last year. And I know there's a coaching change there. Maybe Pete DeBoer comes in and changes things a little bit. That's really the only thing I can look at as to why this number wouldn't be more up around 37. I mean, it was his second full year in the National Hockey League last year, and this guy buried 41. So, I mean, it's probably my favorite of all the picks that I've got here, to be honest with you. Robertson, and this is probably because up here in Canada, we don't get a chance to watch the Dallas Stars a lot. I don't seek out a lot of Dallas Stars games, but I think many people don't realize just how damn good Jason Robertson is. This guy is a stud. Yes, yeah, Hintz too. Hintz is also an outstanding player, and they've very much needed to take over for Ben and Seguin because those guys aren't it anymore. Luckily for the Dallas Stars, Robertson and Roope Hintz are. So Robertson over 33.5 goals. I love it. I know Gager, Joaquin Gage, friend of the show, Two Guys in the Goalie podcast, he thinks Robertson can take a run at 50 this year. That's how much he likes him. You're getting him at 33.5. I think he pushes 40 again for sure. So I'm on Robertson over 33.5. And then that brings us to the Oilers, and I'll hit on Kane, and then we can talk about McDavid. Evander Kane, this would be a career high. Okay, he's never scored 33 goals in a regular season. But he also, prior to last year, had never played with Connor McDavid. And this guy fits in perfectly with Connor McDavid. Regular season and playoffs last year, he scored at a 49.5 goal pace playing with Connor McDavid. He had a sick playoff. It was 13 goals in 15 games, whatever. It's nuts. Even in the regular season, it was 22 goals in 41 or 42 games playing with Connor McDavid. And when you look at how the Oilers might manage their lineup this year, and you've got Hyman, you can move around. You got Nuge, you can move around. But I think the one thing that's a certainty is that Evander Kane is going to spend the majority of his ice time 5-on-5 with Connor McDavid, which should go a long way. Everybody's talked about it forever. Connor McDavid needs that sniper on his wing. Well, now he's got it. And on top of that, last year, when he did have that success, even in the regular season, they didn't really mix him in on that top unit power play. It was Hyman, who's the net front guy, and then it was Yamamoto or Jesse Puljujarvi. You didn't see a ton of Kane. This year, it looks like it'll be Hyman to start, and then Kane will be the second guy who comes out net front and still gets to play with McDavid and Draisaitl, because the Oilers essentially only run one power play. So he scored 30 in the past in a couple of different places, and he did that without Connor McDavid. So I'm on Evander Kane over 32.5 here.
Dude, he scored 30 in Winnipeg playing with Kyle Wellwood. Like the guy.
That's all you need to know.
he's certainly capable of doing it, and it seems like Evander's in just a great spot right now. I mean, I would love to get a number on Kane to hit 40. I think it's totally realistic if he plays, the entire season. And we saw the difference that he made last year coming into Edmonton, and he had 13 goals in 15 playoff games.
It was ridiculous.
So listen, I like this number. I think it's very, very likely. Although the one thing that maybe could impact that is my final wager of McDavid. And McDavid, maybe he gets a little more selfish, if you will, and I say that in a positive way. But there's a lot of talk about Austin Matthews last year, and Austin Matthews won the Hart because he had the 60 goals. And listen, I'm not dissing Matthews. I think he's unbelievable and one of the great players right now in the game. But I do wonder if McDavid sort of sits back and goes, you know what? This coming season, I'm getting 50. I can do it.
That's it.
I'm going to get 50. He's a very unselfish player. He's been a great guy at making his other teammates look good. And Evander Kane was maybe the biggest beneficiary of that coming over when he was acquired. But I kind of have a feeling that Conor is going to step it up a little bit. I like McDavid to get 50 goals this season. I'm just going to throw that out there right now. His total is 44.5. And when we look at what he did last year, he was at 44. So can he score one more goal than he did last year on probably a better team? Absolutely he can. And to me, it really comes down to what he wants to do. And I have a feeling there's a few things that he's just checking off the list. Beating Calgary in the playoffs, some playoff success was great. They'll be looking for more of that. But for the regular season, I don't know. I think there's going to be maybe a bit of a reminder to many people that are starting to think that there's a number of horses in the race for the best player in the game. I think Connor McDavid has an emphatic exclamation point on his performance this year. And with that, I think it'll include a few more goals. As I said, I like him to get 50, so I'm betting him over 44.5.
Yeah, and I think another thing he wants to check off this year's 130-point season. Hasn't done it yet. Hit 123 last year. I know it sounds crazy, but I still think he's getting a little bit better, which is just insane. He was over a 2-point per game clip in the postseason, which when he just went supernova. He's not going to play at that level in the regular season, I would think. Although I think I saw Chris Cuthbert yesterday tweet, can Connor McDavid get to 150 points? And you know what's crazy is that part of me is like, yeah, if things go really well, he could take a run at it. Like he's that ridiculous. So 127.5. I think it's a reasonable place to set this number, but I'm going to go with the over. And I do think we have to remember last year he finished with 123, and that was with the Oilers going through a 5-week stretch where they all played horrible and got their coach fired. Right after Jay Woodcroft took over, they kind of turned things around and he got going again. So you could, from a Connor McDavid perspective, little bit of a mid-season slump last year. Highly doubt that happens again. And if it does, he's smashing 123. And I think because of that, he'll probably end up in the low 130s. So I'm going to hop on Connor McDavid here, 127.5. And the best thing about getting something like this is because McDavid at some point this year will go off for 16 points in 4 or 5 games. Like there will be those stretches where he just insane, and you have the conversation for 3 weeks. Is he the greatest hockey player ever? And it happens every year. He goes through there's those stretches, right? And he's going to do that. That's why he gets up to this level, and I'm on him over 127.5. I like it.
Yeah, listen, you're not going to get any argument from me here. I think McDavid's going to have a big season. I think the Oilers are looking good, and just before we go, where is Edmonton 88 to make the playoffs? plus 430 to miss. Although I don't think there's many people that are expecting the Oilers to miss the playoffs. I am, though, for my Winnipeg peeps that are wondering about the Jets and their potential. There's a lot of people, models and whatnot, not liking on the Jets. Plus 160 to make the playoffs. I will make it official on the lock shop right now. We're going to lock that in. All the good vibes of Rick Bones, some young players getting in new positions to make it. Still got Connor Hellebuck. And let's not forget how bad that division is. Like, the Central is always this crazy meat grinder.
Yeah.
Well, you've got Chicago and Arizona who are neck and neck for the worst rosters ever assembled in the NHL. And I think there's big questions, about Dallas under Peter DeBoer, how they look. Certainly they do have Jake Ottinger. St. Louis is a team that, will be right in the mix. Obviously Colorado is the team to beat, but can the Jets get back on it and be better than Dallas or Nashville or St. Louis? I'll certainly take that wager at plus 160. So I'm on that. And then if you go to the specials tab, I got Pat and the guys to do this up because we had this big conversation on Winnipeg Sports Talk. I stuff. If you were going to do, this was right after the Monday Nighter when they had that combined bet for Deebo Samuel and Cooper Kupp in the same game last Monday. Well, I said, what would a combined line on goals for the Jets' new look top line with Kyle Conor, who had 47 last year, Mark Scheifele, and Nikolai Ehlers? And I was speculating that the number would be in and around like 100 or so. Well, if you look at the totals for the players, Ehlers is Connor's 43.5. That's his over under after scoring 47 last year. Scheifele's is 29.5. And Nikolai Ehlers is 30.5 or 32.5, something like that. Anyways, the number that they've given us that is up right now at CoolBet is over under 106.5 for those guys. Here's the thing, and I think the only possible play on that is the under. I mean, the minute one of those guys misses any extended period of time, touch wood, hope it doesn't happen, it's probably a long shot.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that, playing together, they will definitely get points. But, there's only one goal awarded for each play. So I just think that even if you're really optimistic and these guys are getting to those numbers, or like, I can't imagine all three going over their goal totals. I mean, the only line I can imagine that's done that in a long time was the number one line in Calgary last year. And what they did was pretty much historic with Gaudreau, Lindholm, and Tkachuk. So if you were thinking about that bet, I think there's your emotional hedge. You go under 106.5. And if you possibly lose that bet, you're probably buying playoff tickets.
They're playoff bound. They're playoff bound. Yeah,
exactly. But that's just that's the one special available if you go to the end. Ehlers, Scheifele, and Connor. Now, if you gave me a number of like 100, I think I might see if they could get to that total. Just those extra 5 or 6 goals is so big. So we talked about it. I mentioned it on the lock shop, probably an under on that. And all three of those players, I think maybe the one guy, if I was going to take an over of those three on a single bet, I think it'd be Nikolai Ehlers. He was a lock for 30 last year and then ended up missing a period of time. But again, that all counts right now. You got to have guys that can stay healthy. And Kyle Connor's been incredibly durable throughout his career. Bottom line is excited to see what that line can do. And excited to see if the Jets can make us some money and maybe surprise a few people and make the playoffs at plus 160.
As you were talking about it, I tossed a quick 20 on it just in case. I forget all of the futures I do. And then like at the end of the season, I blanked and I go into my cows and it's like, where'd all this come from? And I look, I go, oh yeah, future bets. Yeah, this is great. There's nothing like a little futures bonus at the end of the year, buddy.
Well, exactly. And, it's really needed cool bet. I mean, I've been checking my performance the last little bit with everything. Oh, I'm now in the 99th percentile, Dusty.
Good work, buddy.
Let's see if I'm on the leaderboard now for Canada after a strong.
Got to be close.
Yeah. Boom. 58 right now. Maybe we can get into the top 50 with a nice performance by the Chiefs. But yeah, you just go into your open bets and then just click on the pendings. And usually you can just go down depending on how much you have waiting. You can go down on, oh yeah, that's right. Early October, we threw down on this, that, and the other thing. And anyways, we'll get in on these ones. add that Jets playoffs bet and see if we can have some fun through a great hockey season. It is going to be fun. There's been a few days where it's been a little lean for us, especially with those daily picks last week.
Yeah.
Not anymore, my friend. Not anymore. Full schedule of games beginning tomorrow for you.
That's going to do it for a Double Dip Monday here on the Lock Shop. Obviously, giving you some Monday Night Football plays a little bit earlier in the day, and now getting to our NHL Futures episode as well. We'll be back on Tuesday with the Fantasy Football Extravaganza, so make sure you join us for that as we get you set for Week 6 on your Fantasy Football schedule. Huss, enjoy the rest of your night, buddy.
Thanks, Dusty.